Okay, Dr. Nkansa, one more time. Is it okay for you that I'm recording this session?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to let Dr. Nkansa introduce her work and everything that she's doing and the topic. So, Dr. Nkansa, on to you.
Right. So good morning, everyone. Thank you again for taking the time to join the session, our session for today. My name again is Dr. Eunice Nkansa. I am a full-time lecturer here at King University. I teach within the Division of General Education and Interdisciplinary Studies. My doctoral degree is from Baylor University, EDD in Learning and Organizational Change. And my dissertation focused on exploring international undergraduate students' experiences with open educational resources in college. And so I graduated successfully last year, and I'm happy to continue with my work and also just exploring as much as I can and sharing information in the higher education landscape to better inform policies around the population group of my interest, which is international undergraduate students. So without wasting my time, I'm going to share my screen. And kindly let me know if you can see my screen, because I always do this in class here. Hold on, let me see.
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Let's start. All right, so welcome everyone. So our session today, it's actually going to be very more like laid back, open conversation. So at some point we'll have a discussion as part of this workshop. The topic that I will be looking at is using open educational resources as tools to foster inclusion and learning among international undergraduate students. And just a little background, as a researcher, I did begin my learning here in the United States as an international student. So I'm quite cognizant of the challenges, especially when it comes to learning, acclimating to culture, experiencing all the different challenges, social, emotional, all of that. And so that perspective highly informs my interests within the population group and the work that I do as a researcher. And that is the reason why I specifically studied or explored about their experiences regarding open educational resources, which is a new educational innovation in higher ed. And I think that it's relevant that we do take some time to explore this population group, since a plethora of research study have focused a lot on different student groups. And so I think that international students are also very relevant. So here's a quick overview of what I will be talking about today. We'll have an opening activity just very briefly, and why the conversation matters. IUS is international undergraduate students. We'll look at their growth strengths, the need, and then we'll look at this educational innovation versus it being used as a tool. And I have some results that I would like to share with our group here concerning some data that I gathered regarding my study. So let's talk about textbooks here, and I have this as an opening activity, and this is just a question I want to throw in. Feel free to type in the chat. Do you recall the most expensive textbook you ever purchased in college? And if so, which course was it for? Feel free to unmute yourself or type it in the chat.
Yeah.
Evolutionary psychology, $300. Woo. 150. Okay. Anyone else? I think evolutionary psych is topping. Oh no, economics, 380.
never forget.
Very good. So I'm glad that at least we all do at least recall something. I was a biology major here at Kean University, and so the textbooks were quite expensive. I remember there was a chemistry textbook that I purchased almost 296, and I would never forget that. I had to forgo my pocket money to be able to use it for that. And so I think that all of us can relate in some way to what I am going to be talking about. And so let's hold on to that. Thank you all for sharing. And so let's move on to the next slide here. And to really understand why this conversation matters, especially when it comes to understanding the reason why open educational resources came into being, or why higher education institutions have decided to adopt this new innovation. And it's all in response to the high cost of textbooks, right? So the conversation that students should be able to should not bear that extra burden of, studying in college, aside from all the different challenges that they have to go through. And with international students, these are also going to be extra additional burdens that would be coming on them. And so it's very important that adopting effective curricular strategies can help to augment international undergraduate students' their learning needs and their academic successes amidst all the different challenges. And that's why it's very relevant that we do probe further to really understand and seek to know their perspective and the lens through which they see this educational innovation and how this impacts their own learning. So here is a quick trend that I pulled from the Institute for International Education, trend showing the current international student growth. And by 2030, the number is going to be increasing to over 1 million. So we see the steady rise in that. So clearly international students are a unique population group, and they're here in this country to pursue their learning needs. And so as higher education institutions, it's very important and significant that we do understand certain perspectives and their experiences. Here is also a chart showing, this is from fall 2023. Of course, we did see a decline during the COVID times, but then there's also that steady increase that is happening, is slowly picking back up. And so there is the belief that international student population here in the United States and in college will continue to increase. Their presence also continues to influence resource variation on campus, and it results in a greater diversity of student backgrounds. So they bring in a very rich aspect to the campus or college campuses. So here is a need and the reason why, just to also add to what I indicated or I talked about earlier. According to research, about 92% of US institutions would like to grow their international students totals in the next 5 years. And this data is being pulled from the Institute of International Education. Also, higher education institutions remain interested in expanding internationalization, which is a very critical aspect of higher education institution policies. And the third one is that international students experience financial stress from the expensive cost of textbooks beyond what they can afford. And this has been documented in research. And so it's also highly significant that the experiences of this particular group is considered, especially in order to inform policies. So open educational resources, this is a definition that I picked from UNESCO. It refers to teaching, learning, and research resources that reside in the public domain or it's released under an intellectual property license that permits the free use and repurposing by others. I want us to just kind of put our mind back to if anybody who has ever owned a tool before, right? So let's say you went into Home Depot to purchase a tool. You went there specifically because you know that this tool is needed to work on this particular aspect, right? So you would not purchase the wrong tool for the right job. You want to once you go in there, you purchase the right tool for the right job. And so you ask questions around it. You seek the manual on how to use a particular tool. So think of if open education resources are to be considered as tools that can foster inclusion, then there is a need for us to be able to know about what really open educational resources brings to our students, brings on campus, besides the inherent advantage of affordability. Are there any other aspects of open educational resources that can have advantages to our students' learning? And there's been lots or several research studies that have highlighted that open educational resources, it does have abilities that extend beyond its affordability. And so this feeling of belongingness is central to the concept of inclusive pedagogy, which tends to promote student interaction, engagement, and belongingness in the classroom. In my research, when I So in my research study, when I explored the experiences of international students around open educational resources, one of the areas, or there are a couple of areas that I've highlighted within this presentation that actually reinforces one of the advantages that open educational resources has: inclusive properties. So it has that tendency to enable students or its users to feel that they belong within that space. And so I want us to just quickly look at these responses that I captured. And these are direct quotations from a focus group interview that I conducted among international student participants. One of them says, "I feel cared for in any class. This instructor who has OERs assigned OERs as the alternate text, and it also tells me the instructor is someone who shows concern and acknowledges the unique needs of all learners in the classroom." Another response that a participant gave was, "The use of OERs helps to eliminate any feelings of exclusion, especially in a classroom if you're unable to afford a textbook. It makes you feel like you belong in the class." So the other response was, "Having the option to use OERs in a class makes it easy. And you already have it before class starts and have the opportunity to read ahead and know what the professor is talking about. So I think it is inclusive." The other student or other participant also shared that if students only follow a traditional textbook, they might only gain a limited amount of knowledge compared to learning from educational innovations such as OERs, which have unique features and qualities. Hence, it fosters excellence in their learning as students. Additionally, they shared some of these responses that one of OERs provided by, and this is from this particular student shared their personal experience, that an OER that was provided by their professor had external learning tools apart from the instructor slides. And so they were able to, and these external learning tools had a well-developed library, which was separate from the sections. And so it dedicated like enough information, or it had unique features that helped them to better understand and be better engaged within that textbook that they had. And I thought that was very pertinent. Also, Some of them share that with the rapidly evolving times, OERs are likely to be the breeding ground for all those new knowledge libraries, which also is very significant. And one recommended that higher education institutions must have a baseline that requires all professors at least to incorporate open educational resources into their courses. And again, this perspective is coming from international undergraduate students. And the last one that I captured here is that this participants share that they do not see any difference in the quality, because one of the major concerns that has come up, or kind of like a myth around open education resources, is that the quality might not be the same as traditional textbooks. And when this particular participant was asked the question, they did not see any difference between the OERs that they used and the traditional textbooks. Actually, they found it to be of the same quality, and they preferred the OERs better because they were cheaper, they were free, and then they were also easily accessible. So the question was, why wouldn't you even go for that? They added that. Okay. So my question then is, what's next? As educators, as higher education institutions, what is next for us? And as we have, just from the different perspectives shared by these international undergraduate students, even though they're a small proportion of the population group within our campuses, I believe that their perspective is also, it's still very relevant, especially if institutions are looking to explore, or institutions are exploring different ways and strategies on how to better engage all of its learners. I believe that open educational resources it holds better prospects towards, like, engaging our international undergraduate students. Despite the challenges that they're facing, these are the little things that also can go a long way in enhancing their experiences and creating a more meaningful learning for them while they are here in the United States. And so the question that I pose to all of us is that, are you ready? And it does not have to be a big preparation towards that. It's just you considering and kind of discovering open education resources for yourself. Here at King University, at our library, we on the website, there's a plethora of resources available for faculty, even for students. There are webinars and so many sessions or workshops that are offered. So begin exploring that, or wherever that you find yourself, whichever institution you find yourself in, begin exploring that. As a faculty member, think about the different ways that, I may never know which student this is going to impact, right? So we have different or diverse groups here on our campuses. You considering using maybe a chapter or even a link where resources can be shared with students can definitely go a long way in also impacting their learning experience. And consider to dig in. So look at the best alternative resources to your textbook. Do not just pick any textbook because it's required that I pick an OER. So be very intentional about it, keeping in mind that you want your students to have the same level of quality, even if they were using a traditional textbook. And if you have colleagues who are already using or have already adapted some form of open educational resource, talk to them or reach out to librarians here at Kane University at our Learning Commons for support. And of course, there are so many different platforms. Explore them, learn about the licenses, excuse me, and then take the leap. That's the last word I'll leave with you all, is to take the leap. If it could be one chapter, it could be a video, it could be just a website that you share with your students, so that they can also benefit from it. And eventually, when you're comfortable switching over to an open educational resource, you can fully adopt that as well. Sometimes there are, I believe some publishers, they work with the universities to also give grace periods, or they share resources, alternate resources and textbooks with instructors teaching certain courses. And so you can also work with some publishers as well to see how best you can also enhance the learning and experiences of your students, especially keeping in mind the international student population on our campuses. Right, so these are my references and questions, if any questions.
When you've
I'll turn it
presented
over to
this,
you.
oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, should
When
I
you've,
stop sharing?
sure.
Okay.
When you've presented this to faculty or adjuncts, or first of all, have you? And second, what have the responses been? I work at a library at New Jersey Institute of Technology, and I find that we have mixed responses. Some are really enthused. We have like a grant for writing an OER, and someone did that this summer. It's an animated design logic textbook that's been used a lot actually internationally. Um, but I know that some librarians have mentioned some resistance, so I'm curious about the response you've gotten.
So thank you for that question. So I am fairly new to this field. And so I have not presented this within the course that I instruct. We do have open educational resources that we use, but after completing my dissertation and in my doctoral studies, now I'm looking critically to for alternatives towards textbooks for my course that I teach. And I believe that at my university, they do have lots of resources available to both adjuncts and full-time instructors here as well. So I am not too familiar with who has been receiving maybe taking advantages of those resources, but I know that we do have them in place for faculty.
Thank
I
you.
don't know if I answered your question.
No, I think you did. Yeah, thank you.
And I think that even through research, that's been there's been several challenges and pushbacks from faculty. So you mentioning it, it's quite expected. I believe that some faculty prefer to stick with their traditional texts and styles, but I believe that with the change in dynamics within our educational system and within the higher education landscape, it doesn't hurt to also consider other alternatives to see how best you can assist students. So it's worth exploring.
Yeah, I think too, working in a library, the constant question we get from students is, do you have my textbook? And as a policy, we can't purchase textbooks because they're so expensive and they change every year. And so I find I really wanted to come to this session for that reason. So thank you. It's very energizing.
Thank you. So I believe that Justin has a question. So Justin, I am not aware of any incentive program. I may be wrong, but I know that if they did, it will definitely be great encourager for faculty. I'm not aware of any internal grants or course releases with open educational resources, but I'll definitely look into it.
Dr. Nkansa, that was a wonderful presentation. Thank you for enlightening us. I had a quick question because open education is such a wide field with a potential for a lot of depth and content to cover. Is there a way to gauge the scholarly merit of resources that are on open education platforms? And if so, what could that be? What could be a good way to gauge the scholarly merit of it?
That's a very good question. And I think that one of the concerns that normally comes up is people get overwhelmed with the vast amount of information. So I would say that working closely with the librarians, because they have acquired the expertise. They know the licenses, they know which platforms would be considered maybe like reliable or credible to use or adopt. So definitely, I would say that I work closely with Kane University, for example, our librarians, and I know they constantly share and they offer workshops. So you can definitely reach out to them with their level of expertise. And I'm exploring it myself because when I decided to delve into open educational resources, I think one of the things that I was very curious to find out, because it's fairly new in higher education, and I wanted to just look at it or from a different lens. I didn't want to go through faculty or regular students on campus. I wanted to just see the thoughts of international students if they had even any level of awareness around this educational resource here. So I believe that those expertise, definitely our librarians at any university will be able to assist you in that area. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes. Any other questions or comments? Okay.
I'm curious to find out something for our participants here. Has anybody used open education resources? How has that worked for you? What would be some recommendation you would give if there are faculty here looking to adopting? Kindly share if you can. Yes, please go ahead, Lucy of Harris.
Sure. With all the talk about OER last summer when our textbook came out, I decided recently to sign up for a course on digital humanities taught through edX, which is known for curating from really like prestigious universities, I guess, is their sort of tagline to sell. And I only recently started it, but I found it to be really interesting how they actually help you get situated in an online classroom setting. That's like the very first module. And I found it to be a very beneficial experience so far, though I'm not all the way through. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because oftentimes a lot of people are hesitant to adopt it because they're not sure if they will have the leeway and flexibility to control it as though it's their own. And also these add-on features, I believe that my students also highlighted that in their comments, that there are some unique add-on features that you typically not find in traditional textbooks. So definitely a plus there. Thank you for sharing. Yes, Dr. Handy. Larry Handy.
Hi, I really enjoyed your presentation. And one of the ways I'm using OERs in our general education courses, we have created some supplemental resources that really support the weekly curriculum that we have. And our students have really, and I'm doing a pilot study, and our students have really responded well to the resources, saying that they have allowed them to dive deeper into the assignments and that they feel more informed when they're completing their work. So I definitely think, and then the resources we've created are actually available to the students on a hub in our like on our external site. And so the students have said that they will use those resources. I did a post-study survey, and they said they will use those resources after their course is completed as well. So I am excited about the future of OERs for general education students who need that kind of reinforcement and practice work that we sometimes can't offer in those courses.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that reminds me of another point that came up within my research. So these students, the international students, I believe that at some point when they were taking it, the pandemic happened, and so some of them had to go back home. And so they were really excited that they were using the open education resource because they could access it from anywhere. They said they didn't have to worry about carrying all those big books with them back to the country, and so they could just log in given that they had internet to be able to access it. So that's definitely, yes, easy access.
Excuse me, do you mind putting your link to your study in the chat if possible, or can you send it out to participants? I'd love to cite your study in our article.
Yeah, yes, I will send it to, let me see here. I can share with you, Dr. I'll share with the participants too. Would that be okay, Dr. Reina?
Absolutely. Yes,
Yes.
definitely. Sure.
So anyone joined late, one of my first questions I asked was, do you remember the most expensive textbook you purchased in college? And which course was it for? And I think that economics topped it, was $380. I forgot who had that. But yeah.
I think we have, oh, I think Dr. Handy asked her question.
Yes. So
Give everyone a few more minutes to see if there's any more questions.
and I will share the link to my research. And so if anybody's interested, you can always go through it.
Okay, and I just wanted to request Prajwal Shali if there was a post-session survey that she would like the participants to fill out. I was not able to access the link, the direct link, so in case there is a direct link, please feel free to share it here on chat. Okay. All right, I've not yet heard. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Dr. Nkansa, for this wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
There-
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, so much. Your expertise and your recommendations, your suggestions. Thank you so much. I'm still learning through this process, so it's always an honor to have that opportunity to tap into all the uniqueness in here.
Thank you. It's an honor for all of us. And with that, I'm going to stop the recording.